People ask me all the time to make animals that I'm like, I just don't feel it. I don't feel a connection to that creature.
Hello, print friends, and welcome. This is a bilingual podcast, so if you subscribe to us, you'll be getting episodes in English with me, as well as in Spanish with Miranda. Together, we speak with people around the globe about their practice and passions in the fields of print media and multiples. Hello, Print Friend is brought to you by Speedball Art Products. Speedball is thrilled to announce that they are extending their range of beloved oil-based block printing ink. Partnering with Hello Print Friend host Reynaldo Gil Zambrano, they're giving this line a fresh new look. They've launched 10 rich color options in convenient 8-ounce sized cans. The ink is formulated to be permanent, waterproof, and archival, but provides easy cleanup with vegetable oil. You can purchase now via Speedball's website. Print friends, did you know that Florence, Italy is home to Srisa, a leading institution for art and design education? It offers highly personalized instruction and experiential learning, which meets American university standards for study abroad programs in fine art, liberal arts, and design. Educators who might be interested in teaching in Srisa can lead faculty-led programs utilizing its top-notch printmaking facilities in one of the world's most inspiring cities. To learn more, email info@srisa.org. That's info@srisa.org. And don't forget to mention that Hello Print Friend sent you for exclusive discounts and perks. This episode is also brought to you by Legion Paper. Legion Paper is a fine art paper company that represents the best papers in the world. They either stock it, source it, or make it with brands like Stonehenge, Somerset, Coventry, Reeves, Arches, and more. Legion is the best paper resource for every artist's and printmaker's needs. Learn more about the variety of papers Legion stocks at www.legionpaper.com. My guest this week is Amanda Outcalt. We talk about her journey from jewelry making to precise cut plate etchings, using animals as deeply personal metaphors, and being an artist who is out there selling her work herself and online without the need for a gallery. Hi, Amanda. How's it going?
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to talk to you. I feel like when I first started the podcast, when I first started the Instagram, I just remember coming across a video of your work and just being absolutely enchanted by it and have been following you as a big fan ever since. So that's been years now. And I'm just really excited that I finally get to pick your brain and learn more about you and what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so flattering. It's always nice to know when you're creating content that people are paying attention, because for me, at least, I have to force myself to make the content and force myself to remember. It's not something that I immediately think about when I'm starting a piece. So I have to make a mental note of, okay, this might be a fun step to document. So I love it when people say, oh, I saw this online. I'm like, oh, thank goodness someone's paying attention.
I know. It's not just shouting into the void, right?
Yeah.
Would you introduce yourself to our listeners? I always have these 3 questions that I ask people to answer. And it's just like who you are, where you are, what you do.
Sure. My name is Amanda Outcalt. I am a mixed media artist, and I do some intaglio with my mixed media. I live in Washington, D.C. We've been here since COVID. So it's an interesting time to move. Before that, we were in Virginia, and I'm originally from North Carolina. And I make a living selling my work. Other interesting things about me / completely uninteresting things. I am married and I have a toddler and a dog.
Wonderful.
Yeah. A lot going on in this house.
Yeah, absolutely.
I grew up in North Carolina, but I spent some of my elementary school years in England.
Oh, nice.
We lived in Essex for a little while. And then I went to college at East Carolina University in North Carolina. And after I graduated, I moved to Virginia with my now husband, then boyfriend. And we were in Virginia we thought we were going to be there for 3 years, and we ended up being there for 12, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to DC.
In that childhood landscape, particularly with the international move and all of that, what role did art have in your life during that time? Were you an arty kid? Were you a kid who went to museums?
Been an arty kid, I think. My mom saved a bunch of my drawings from when I was little. And I can tell you, looking at those, I was always very into detail. So there's a lot of drawings that I made when I was little that are all just teeny tiny little drawings. And I would draw a bookshelf, and then I would draw every book on the shelf, and then I would put titles on them and give little like curly Q details on the spines and things. So I was doing that from a very young age. And my sister, who is only, I think she's 18 months older than me, loved drawing too. So we spent a lot of time drawing and making things in my house. And when we were young, my mom was able to take the years off work and stay home with us. And she was always into drawing as well. She was never a professional artist. She would be very quick to say that, but she was great at drawing, and she would make our coloring pages. So she would do a drawing and photocopy them at the library and bring them home, and we would like color in her drawings, which I always thought was really cool.
That's so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. And the international part of it, man, it's tough to say how stuff like that feeds into your work, because I think when you move somewhere, especially a different country, everything about it feels so new and so weird. But when you do it as a young child, you're always getting new weird things in your life, because everything is essentially a new experience when you're 6 or 7. Looking back on it now, I think there's definitely some things that I absorbed from that move that have fed into my work. But I think it took me many years to probably recognize, oh, I love to add these florals and these tiny spaces in my pieces. Not every piece, but a lot of them. And some of that looks like our little back garden when we were in England. And so I think there's so many subliminal things that kind of feed into what you end up creating much later on.
And so it sounded like you moved when you were about 6 or 7. How old were you when you returned to the States?
I think I was in the beginning part of 4th grade.
Oh, okay.
The end of 3rd grade. The other thing that I should tell you in this podcast recording is I have almost like a comically bad memory, which is actually what a lot of my work is about. But I don't retain a lot. And what I retain is like very tiny snippets. But I had a brain surgery when I was in my early 20s. And part of my poor memory, I think, is tied into all of those issues.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just, you just were necessarily born with a poor memory, but yeah, there's actually like a something you can look back on that says that, yeah.
Yes. And I don't know for certain that is the reason why I have such a bad memory, but my neurologist said it definitely plays a big part. Yeah.
Interesting. Tell me about that kind of time period where you've been an arty kid. It sounds like you had a lot of support around the home, and then it's time to go to college. Did you want to go for art? Did you go for art?
Yes, I wanted to go for art. And that was basically the only thing I was looking at colleges. My family would much prefer me to go to an in-state school for financial reasons. Although we also looked at like Savannah College of Art and Design, lived in North Carolina at the time. But East Carolina had a really great art program. And when I was in high school and also college, I was always very studious and academic. And East Carolina doesn't have the best academic reputation. I don't know if that's changed since I was there. But I will say, going to school there, the art program was very rigorous. And it also allowed me to loosen up a little bit because it was a very fun school to go to. I looked at art programs and I was thinking painting and drawing because that's what I always did. And I think most people who love art in middle school and high school, that's the only art that they know about, maybe a little bit of ceramics. But people don't know about metalsmithing and sculpture and printmaking. You just don't really have that base with most high school art programs. So I was just thinking painting and drawing. And I had always loved kids. So I thought I'll get a degree in art education and I can be an art teacher. Win. Two things that I love put together. And then when I got to school, I was upset when I realized how many education classes you had to take and how few art classes you had to take. So I thought, okay, I can always get my BFA and then go back and get an education license if I feel like it or add it in later. But I decided to just do the BFA program so I could have more of a knowledge base in whatever medium that I chose. And again, at that time, I was definitely painting and drawing route. But the way it worked at ECU was you got to take, and it's probably worse this way in most art schools, but you got to take a bunch of survey classes of other things. And I took a metalsmithing survey class and I loved it. So I ended up, I couldn't drop the painting and drawing because I love that as well, but I ended up double majoring and doing metalsmithing and jewelry making because ECU had a really strong enameling program and still does. With Linda Darty was there. They were just starting their Italy program. I went the first summer that they were doing that. And the enameling was like my entry point because I was like, oh, color, and I can incorporate some of my drawing and line quality, and oh, this is so fun. So I loved metalsmithing. I don't think I was a particularly good jewelry maker or metalsmith. I think I made a lot of winter coat brooches. Like brooches that were so hard you could only wear them on a winter coat because I was layering these enamel pieces and riveting things together. And I love the way it looked at the end, but it wasn't that wearable. That makes sense. And I did take one printmaking survey class, but it was so hard to get into printmaking at ECU.
Really?
Like the classes filled up so quick. And so I was a super senior by the time I got to take printmaking survey. I was in an extra semester, which was partly because of the double majoring, partly because I had to have a brain surgery that summer. And so anyway, so I had a bonus semester at school and I got to take printmaking. And I thought, oh man, if I had taken this earlier, I think I would have really gotten into this. But yeah.
I'm so curious about metalsmithing because I know that kind of how you identify, it's like artist, printmaker, metalsmith, like it's right up there. So I'm hoping you can maybe speak to a little bit what all it encompasses and maybe what it was about it that really captured you and you felt made it so you wanted to, it just sounds like it lit you up as soon as you were exposed to it. And that's always curious too when people connect with something that they are realizing is going to be their destiny.
Yeah, maybe I'm misrepresenting it a little bit because did it light me up immediately? No, I hated it. The first 3/4 of the semester of the first metalsmithing class I took because I loved the idea of it. And the ECU metals program had at that time 3 different professors, which is a lot of metals professors. I think they had 4 full-time professors. And I think they might have 5 now. It's been a long time since I looked at the program. After I graduated, I would go back to ECU. They do a metalsmithing symposium there every year now. And so I used to do that, but I've become a little disconnected from that world. But when I took it, I thought, wow, this is tiny detail work. And then you can wear it. So you feel so connected to it.
Yeah.
And I still love and collect art jewelry. So I have a lot of amazing jewelry that I wear. And I love wearing handmade jewelry that people have made. But so I loved the idea of it. And then when I took the class, the skills are so new and different and tough to master, for me, at least initially. Learning how to solder was challenging. And then the final piece that I made my first semester involved a lot of soldering because I'm the type of person who, if something is hard for me, I want to do it and do it and do it until I feel like I've got it. I love the process of learning, right? But I probably bit off more than I could chew in a lot of those things in the first metalsmithing class that I took because I had so much soldering and so many joints on this bracelet that I was making. And I don't know if you have ever done any metalsmithing, but there's some techniques that you can do with soldering, like using easy, medium, and hard, and they flow at different heat points. So if you have a lot of solder joints, you start with hard solder.
Oh, yeah.
And then you move to medium and then easy. So hopefully your hard solder isn't reflowing as you're heating to. I just had way too many solder joints on this thing. And I would think, oh, perfect. The solder is finally flowing. And then all the other solder joints would give and everything would fall off. And it was just like, I almost threw my final piece across the studio. And I was like, I hate this. And I felt that way about a lot of metalsmithing. The saw blades you work with are so tiny and skinny, and it takes a while to master that. But then, so after I took it, the first survey course, once I had a couple days away from the studio, after I had that project, that drove me so crazy. Self-imposed, by the way. I do this to myself, give myself these big challenges. I thought, you know what? I want to get back in the studio and do more. So then I signed up for a second, and everything just fell into place. And all the skills, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm finally understanding this. And that's when I started loving metalsmithing. Yeah. Not the first class that I took, but I loved the idea of it the first class that I took. I could see, oh man, this feels like it's for me. This tiny detail work, and then you can wear it and it feels so personal and connected to you. I loved that. But it took me a while to get my skills to where I actually loved doing it too.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But it wasn't necessarily as fun or rewarding until you actually could do it. That's very understandable.
Yeah. And I work with shaped plates now. So I've taken my metalsmithing studio is all packed up in my basement now, except for my bench, which is behind me, but that's where I do my sawing, any drilling, filing, sanding of my plates. And when I say I saw my plates out with a jeweler saw, I think there's a big learning curve with that. So people want to try it, which is great. And I just say it takes a while to be good. So if you get really frustrated and you're trying to saw your copper apart and you want to throw it across the room, that's just part of it. But
You're on the track.
But you get better and you get better and better, as with everything, right? So the part of metalsmithing that I still do is a lot of sawing and filing.
And so you said in college you just took this one printmaking survey class.
Yeah.
When did printmaking find its way back into your practice and how?
Yeah. So I, after college, became a museum educator. So I started using art education, but because I didn't have an education certificate, a teaching certificate, I couldn't teach in a school. So I thought I'll teach at museums and try to do education in museums. And I loved that world. So I worked at a contemporary art museum for a while in their education department, which was really fun. But I started to want to teach in a school. I did the art teacher training at the museum, and I thought, wow, they seem like such a cool, tight-knit group of ladies, and like the stories that they would tell of their students at the art teacher trainings. I was just like, man, I probably should get back into that world. So I started, while I was working at the museum, going to school in the evenings to get my education license. And once I got my education license, I got a job at an elementary school teaching art. And it was this great elementary school, neighborhood school. I loved it. But what I also loved is the freedom of summers, because I took full advantage of that when I was teaching. So I would go take classes at Penland and Arrowmont and these kind of like art camp for grown-up places. And I always tried to take something. Initially, I would do metalsmithing classes because that's what I loved. And there's so many techniques to learn in metalsmithing. It was really fun to go take a 2-week intensive and learn something completely new. But then as I became more involved as an art teacher, I wanted to try new stuff that I felt I didn't know a whole lot about, but might help feed into my practice and be able to teach students. So I took ceramics classes, a number of ceramics classes. I was never particularly good, but I took a number of them. And then I took a printmaking class too with Andy Rubin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I took a class with him and it was amazing. And I had so much fun. And he's so fun. And the whole group of people were so fun. But I had a 2-week class with him and I left thinking, man, it's so upsetting. I'm never going to do that again. because I didn't have any equipment. And
Yeah.
printmaking is so equipment heavy. So I was like, I loved it and I miss it already. I was telling this to my husband because Andy had let me in the class. He was such a great teacher and that he let people bring in techniques that they were using in other ways and feeding that into the printmaking because that's a nice entry point. Here, you're learning this new thing, but you can also do what you're familiar with. And I had wanted to cut my plates up in the class because I see a piece of copper and with a metalsmithing brain, that's what you think of. And so he had let me do that. And then I wanted to do more. And there was not really a way to do that. In the area I was in Virginia, we didn't have any print studios where you could rent time. I would have to come up with the solution myself. And my husband, Joe, who has so much more of a business brain than me, I just have an art brain. It's like, why don't you just do a Kickstarter campaign?
Oh, yeah.
And see how much money you can raise and see if you can get your own stuff. Because I was thinking about, maybe I should write a grant. All these things you think of coming from art academia world. I'm like, maybe you could write a grant to get money. You could buy a press and then I need to get it back. And like, I just had so many things. And Joe was like, just do a Kickstarter. I promise you'll raise the money, but you're just going to have to like hustle. And I was like, okay. So I did it and I raised more money than I needed to, which was awesome. And then I had money for the press and my acid tank and like just all the basic stuff that I needed. And then I could make the rewards because I had promised people I'll make you prints if I meet my goal.
Yeah, of course.
And I delivered on all those and it took me like 6 months because I was still teaching and I was making those as well at night. And then I had some extra money left. And again, my business brain husband was like, why don't you get some like display materials and start doing an art show or two and see, because you could sell your work. And he was like, look at how many people just contributed to your Kickstarter. And some people I didn't know. He was like, people like your work and maybe you could sell it. And I was like, I want to do that. And like hem and haw, like everybody who ever went to art school, just hem and haw about if what you're doing good enough. And do I want to present this and display it? But I did what he said. And that's how I got started doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. I'm really curious too, in terms of the content of your work. Did it change at all when you started doing these cut plate intaglio pieces? Or is this sort of animals and animals as metaphor and storytelling, visual storytelling in that way? Was that present before, or did moving to the new medium change that at all?
I've always been narrative in my work, always. But I used to do really figurative work. In college, I had always loved figure drawing. I love portraiture. I still do. And I did almost entirely narrative work of people and figurative for the first years that I was working in printmaking. And I slowly transitioned to doing more animals. I was thinking with figurative work that people would see a figure and a piece and kind of put themselves into the piece, almost see themselves as that figure. And what it found was, especially talking to people as I do when I'm selling my work and going to shows, people, if they see another person in it, they have more trouble putting themselves in the position of that person they don't know. And I have a lot of figurative work in my house, but I think I might be unique in that. But when I started using animals, people have such a connection to animals and we put so much symbolism into animals, and so do I. And I have reasons why I use the animals that I do in every piece that I do, because I have connections and they symbolize different emotions. And what I found is the animals help people connect with the work more. And I think myself too. And having a child and coming from the world of art education, kids connect so much with animals too. And we don't lose that as we get older. People still maintain that love and interest, most people. So it just was a natural evolution when I started adding a few animals, and then I just built and turned into almost all animal work now, which is a fun challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that ability, or that thing that people do where they see animals as symbols for people, for emotions. It's so ancient, right? Think of like Aesop's fables. Is it actually a fox who has the sour grapes? It's just,
right.
It's a really interesting thing about people, I feel like, that almost easier to have empathy for animals than other people. And easier to see them as universal symbols than just stories about people. And it's something that is multicultural, goes back millennia. It's somehow just in our bones. Yeah.
If you think about movies and media that made an impression on you when you were little, my son watches The Land Before Time now. He loves that movie. The scene with the mom in Land Before Time, I cry every time we watch it.
Yeah.
That is tough. Artax, the horse in Neverending Story. Do you remember that when he sinks in the swamp of sadness?
Woof.
It's just, and like I said, I have a terrible memory, but you remember stuff like that. Now, when a person dies in a movie, if for some reason it
doesn't
fit the same way. My husband is maybe the king of showing my son inappropriate media for his age. He's just turned 3. That's my son's name. But like I said, we've seen The Land Before Time and stuff. So many kids' movies have these deaths in them.
Yeah.
And Joe wants to show him
a classic.
We haven't shown him Bambi yet. But for him, Wells doesn't, he knows it's sad and he's, oh, she's sad or he's sad when an important character dies. But he also doesn't, like, of course they don't understand death. They're 3, but we're raising him a little bit differently than I was raised because Joe has a different relationship to animals than I do. I was a vegetarian for a very long time. Now I'm a pescatarian, and that's as far as I've been able to go. But Joe loves fishing and he will kill and clean the fish. And he's taken Wells fishing, and Wells loves the part where they clean the fish and they get to look at the skeleton. And he loves nothing more than like eating a whole creature, like seeing a crab and then pulling the legs apart and be like, now I'm eating the legs, which I think is actually probably a better way to raise someone to understand, like, this is part of our entire life cycle. Thank you, crab, for giving your life so I can have this nourishment. I wasn't raised like that, which is fine, but I have an incredibly soft heart for animals. And I think it's good to have a balance of both.
Well, yeah. And not have to have that moment when people, like when little kids just have that relationship with meat that it comes packaged at the grocery store and you put it in your cart just the way you put in broccoli. And I think a lot of people have a very formative memory of when they realized, oh, this cube was once walking around and feeling and eating and having to make that connection. So I think, from the very beginning, seeing life, death, consuming, if you're going to eat meat, that's a good way to do it.
And it's, when he was little, we call chicken. When you eat it or when it's alive, it's a chicken. And when he was first learning words and eating, he learned what a chicken was from a picture in a book. This is a chicken, and going to farms, and this is a chicken. And then we fed him dinner one night and I said, we're having chicken. And he looked at it and he was like, this isn't chicken. Like, I know what a chicken is. I don't think this is it. He looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, oh, this is the meat from the chicken. When you take off the skin and the feathers and we cook this part and we eat it. And with things like beef and pork, because Wells eats all kinds of meats, just like my husband does. They're not pescatarians, although Wells eats a lot of seafood. But when we feed him pork, we remind him, so this is pig, because we give it a different name.
Yeah.
Pork, ham, but it's pig. And beef, that's cow. And I think it's going to help him have connections because he is so interested in animals, to know what he's eating, because we don't do enough of that. Anyways, I've verged way off topic, but I think about this kind of thing a lot.
It's all connected to your work, because so much of what you do is using animals as a vessel for human emotions. And again, it all stems from this root of the empathy we feel with animals. And I think that is related, of course, to how we separate that from what we eat, how beef is not a cow. It's not that thing that stands in the field with those big brown eyes. No, this is beef.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And it is a paradox, I think, within the contemporary human experience for sure. I'm really interested in your work, particularly as animal, as symbol, as vessel, as empathy factory, empathy catalyst.
Empathy factory.
Empathy factory, yeah, is the subtlety of creating the way you're able to give animals facial expressions without anthropomorphizing them out of animalhood, but still creating a human emotion on the image of an animal is really interesting. And I would love to hear you talk about that, because it seems like it would have to be a really delicate balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that. I have a lot of people that have my work in children's rooms, but a comment that I hear a lot from people is, this has animals in it, but it doesn't seem just for kids. And I think part of the reason for that is because I do very realistically create my animals. Like you said, I try to give them a personality and a feel when I'm drawing them. And I have 3 hair etchings, large hair etch. To me, they're very personality wise are incredibly different from like their body language and the kind of expression on their face, even though I don't know that they truly have an expression, but they do, like the way how open their eyes are. Is their mouth even curled up a little bit? And I try to, like, the way they use their bodies too. I try to use that and when I'm creating a new plate, I'm thinking about one specific piece that I'm going to make with that plate. But I try to give it enough wiggle room that I can do many things, because one of the fun things about my work is reusing a plate again and making something completely new with it. So I want my animals to feel like they have, personality, expression, but still be ambiguous enough that I can do multiple things with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because I think like a key look and a key feature, I think, in your practice is the fact that often we think of printmaking composition as existing within a square or a rectangle. And it's treated often just like a full sheet of paper, and people will say, okay, like I'm creating everything on this one block or multiple blocks for colors or plates or whatever it is. But because you cut your plates, they're these sort of free floating little prints. And so you can put a hair in one print, and it's because it's cut, it's almost, I don't know, like puzzle piece isn't the right word, but it's that kind of idea where you can rearrange things. So I could see how you can get a lot of life out of one cut plate of a jumping hair, because it can be jumping into something or out of something or over something, depending on the composition that you put it in.
Yeah. And sometimes I pair them together so that they have, I do that somewhat. I made these flamingos that I often use together because they're portraits of me and my husband. And so often when I'm using them, I'll put them together because they work together. They're like a metaphor for a relationship. One has its head down. One kind of is in a stance where I often have him like pulling the head of the other one up, because so I've been with my husband for 18 years. We haven't been married that long, but we've been together for a really long time. And when you have this long relationship, there are many lives of that relationship and many phases. And one person can be the support when the other person needs it. And it goes back and forth and ebbs and flows. And I think, actually, now that I'm saying that the flamingos are portraits of my husband and I, I've never given it this much thought, but because I used to do so much figurative work, I think of the animals as portraits of people as well. So maybe that's how I give them that personality, because I'm subconsciously thinking of them as a stand-in for a person as I'm doing the drawing.
You're almost like handling them the way you would a portrait of a person. Because people I know who do animals a lot in their work or even do, let's say, like animal portraits as part of their practice, commissioned animal portraits of pets or that sort of thing. They say often what people who do human portraits say, that it's all in the eyes. It's all in the face. And if you want this to be believable and move you, you can't slack on that. And yeah, absolutely.
True. That's true. Yeah. So I think the kind of narrative nature of my work will never go away, but there's probably a phase in my future where I go back to moving into portraiture. I think I'll just go in and out of things. And also, like I said, I have my metalsmithing studio packed up in my basement, but my husband keeps coming back to, can we free up this space? Can you sell your kiln? And I'm like, no, come back to that one.
Yeah. Totally.
Everything builds on itself. Yeah. So my work in my current state has been a long phase for me, but it's changing and evolving now too, even still. I used to only have a single animal in my pieces ever, and I started putting them together, and I made 3 hares. Once we had my son, I was like, this is the 3 of us. We're all going to be in these pieces together. And I use them separately mostly, but I put them together too.
Yeah. And you used to appear in your own work pretty regularly. And I think that goes back to, as you say, the figurative work. And I guess that's interesting that I haven't seen Amanda for a while in your work. So I don't know if
true, but you have, because I am one of the flamingos.
Yeah,
and I am. When I was pregnant with Wells, I made this bear piece, and you can see on my Instagram, I did this chronicling of making my large bear etching, and she's seated. So she's not standing, she's seated, and she's got her arms out like this. And I didn't think too much about the pose when I made it, but I was like, when I started that etching, I was 8 months pregnant, and the bear is just like ready to receive something, right? She's got her arms out. And I knew that the bear was me. And when I was making it, I was like, this feels like me right now. This is a portrait of me. And when I've used that piece, it's always been very much about something that is happening very directly with my life at that time. But the first piece that I made with that bear etching has a heart, but she's wearing this like flower crown, and she's unzipping her body to reveal her heart, which is how I very much felt when I finally had my son after many years of trying to have a kid. It was like, this is it. And now the thing that everybody says did happen, where you feel, okay, now your heart's outside your body. And that's how you're going to live life from now on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think one of the themes that I see in terms of the types of animals that you pick, it seems like a lot of larger animals. So it's like polar bears, rhinos, bison, bears, right? Elephants. And is that just because they're more fun to draw, or are you pulled to the sturdy work, that sturdy form somehow?
Yeah, it's a few things. Like I said, oftentimes when I make an etching, I have one specific piece in mind that I know I want to make with that animal. When I was first thinking of the flamingos, like I said, they're me and my husband, but I use them as a symbol of balance, right? Because how could you not with a flamingo who stands on one leg?
Yeah.
So I think about, what symbolism do I want to use this animal with? And then I also think about, how fun is this animal to draw and create, right? Think of all with the rhinos, the wrinkles and the texture. And people always ask me, am I going to make a shark? Probably not. That seems boring. They're so smooth.
They have a lot of teeth. You could get really detailed in there. They have a lot of teeth. Yeah. The body, not so much.
But it has to be like fun for me to make too. I have to want to draw it. And then I don't really associate with apex predators very much. So if you think about these as a stand-in for people and a portrait of a person, the only apex predators that I really make have been bears. And bears seem like some of the most dangerous of apex predators, really, because they don't look fierce. They look cuddly, and we associate them with cuddling. What's the first stuffed animal every child gets, right? So they're predators, but they have this softness about them that we've given them that they don't really have. But we still associate them with some level of kindness and sweetness, which is not really true for a bear's personality. So it has, but I've never done a lion or a tiger
Yeah,
or
that's
a
true.
shark
Yeah.
or something that's only fierce is not really for me. I don't associate myself with that. And I think I put too much of myself in the work to be able to make that jump at this point in my life. But maybe when I'm feeling less tender, if I get older, then you might see like a tiger appear or something. But people ask me all the time to make animals that I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to make that.
Yeah.
I just don't feel it. I don't feel a connection to that creature.
Yeah.
So there's like a 3-part way that I choose the animals that I make.
So if we do ever see a snarling lion appear, we're going to be like, dang, what's going on with Amanda? Changed, right?
Although we go to the zoo a lot. We live in DC and we live close to the National Zoo. And my son, like I said, is crazy about animals, which is wonderful for me. Had it been trucks, I would have gotten into that too. But the fact that it's animals is just so great because I also love animals. So we go to the zoo every couple weeks, and he doesn't really care to see like the lion and the tiger often. But whenever we go see the tiger, man, this tiger like pulls at my heartstrings so much. The tiger is always pacing, like just back and forth and back and forth. And like, a lot of the zoo animals are in the zoo for a reason now, especially Smithsonian Conservation Institute. They can't be in the wild for various reasons. But you can tell this tiger, this is either like their stalking behavior that they can't use naturally as they would like to, or it's an anxiety thing. I'm not sure what it is with this tiger, but I see this tiger and I feel like connection to the tiger. But if I make a tiger, I'll probably have to go to the zoo and photograph that specific tiger and put that tiger into my work, because that tiger just feels, I don't know if other people have this, but every few years I need a life shakeup of some type. It used to be changing jobs. Or like changing medium in my work, or moving, or having a kid. I need something. I get this restlessness, and I know a lot of people do, but that tiger feels that to me. And because the tiger lives in the zoo, it's not predator anymore. So I feel that, I don't know. Anyways, this is a long story about the tiger, but I've been thinking about the tiger a lot because we saw him just this past weekend. Anyways.
Yeah.
But overall, no, not apex predators for me.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense, particularly as you said, with your, sounds like inborn interest in details, that the animals that you can really get into are that rhino, anything with feathers, obviously the details in furs as well. But yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And there's other stuff about animals that I find interesting too, as I've been delving more into the animal world and learning more about them. The animals that are solitary versus the animals that live together in packs. And I am much more of a solitary person, although now that I have my son, I'm a little pack with him. But my husband and I both travel a lot for work, so we spend a lot of time apart. So while we're very connected, I've always felt I'm by myself a lot, which suits me just fine. But thinking about how animals live is another interesting component of my work. Tigers are lone animals versus lions who live in packs. It's all just very interesting. And there's so many layers. All this to say, some of those things come into play when I'm making a piece, but not every single thing. And I have sort of an alphabet of symbolism that I come back to again and I draw from, as I think we all do as artists, like things that we like to use and use again in different ways. And so sometimes when I'm talking to people about my work, they'll be like, wow. And I'll say, I chose this animal for this reason. And I use balloons as a symbol of memory in my work and whatever. And they're like, oh my gosh, so tell me about this ribbon right here. And I'm like, that's just a ribbon. So people think everyone who makes work thinks deeply about every single part of it. And that's only partially true for me.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear you speak more to that element of being an artist who is self-employed, self-sustaining, and also the face of your own artwork, that's a particular experience as an artist. Because other artists, they just give it to galleries. I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk to people. Just send me the check. But you've chosen to be the person who goes to the events where you're interacting with people. And I just would love to hear you talk to that experience. And do you think that it affects your work? Is it draining? Is it sustaining? Is it something in between?
Oh my. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about this because it's always interesting to hear how different artists make their living. And I don't teach any workshops. I don't do anything to make money other than selling my work. The reason I don't use galleries, and sometimes I do, but I just find they can't move the work as fast as me. And when I sell my own work, I retain all of the profits. Really nice. So I started doing shows because my husband said he thought it would be a great idea for me to try. This sounds like I never have any ideas in my own business wise. And that is 100% true. I do not have a good brain for making money, but my husband has helped point me in the right direction. I'm incredibly introverted. That doesn't mean that I don't have people skills. It just means it is draining for me to be around people. So when I travel to a show, it is very intense for a few days because you have to talk to so many people, and maybe 5% of people who you talk to actually buy a piece of yours, but staying engaged with that many people. And also you do find yourself saying the same thing over and over again, which is tough. And I do feel really drained after a weekend at a show. But the fun thing about traveling to shows is I have a group of friends that are also at shows that we'll see each other in Miami. And then in a few months, we'll see everybody again at Denver. And it's just a fun way to live with a neat community of people. Did I want to do shows? No, it wasn't my idea. I love the working in my studio part, being alone, but it is a nice compliment to that because I spend a lot of time working alone by myself. And my studio's in my house. I don't have a shared studio space. I don't have people that I like bounce ideas off. So when I travel to shows, that's my time with my artist friends. And so while it is intensive, I can do it for a few days, then come home and rest and recuperate. But as a person who went to art school, the idea of going to an art show and setting up your own work and selling it seemed, I don't know, they put the zap on you in art school with that's lowbrow and that you want to be like an artist who sells it in galleries and does, but it's actually really cool to be able to talk to people about your work. And so many people say, I don't know anything about art, but I like your, and I'm like, no, actually, if you like it, something about art, you know what you like, right? You know what you connect with, and talking to people about art and making it more accessible, I think is really important. And I wish someone had said to me, there are artists that do shows who truly make a living this way and make art that's actually about something. It's not just, I'm not just painting a flower because I think a flower is going to sell. That's not how I make my work. I make what I want to make. And what I've found is that the work that I'm the most excited about making, something about that energy translates and it tends to sell quickly. And I don't know why that is, but something about the energy of the pieces sell quickly. And wish when I had been in art school, I had any courses that taught me about money making because I think it's incredibly doable to make a living just selling art, but people just don't know how to do it and are uncomfortable trying and starting. Yeah. But there are some really nice high-end shows out there that people spend good money at. And if you maintain an email list and you maintain a following online and you can nurture relationships, I have people that collect my work that have bought many pieces from me that are invested in me too. That's the other thing about being an artist who you meet at a show. Yeah. People follow me, and I don't put a ton of content of my son on my Instagram grid, but he's in my stories a lot. And people who bought work from me 2 years ago are like, oh my gosh, how is Wells? I saw that funny video where he's talking about this. And I'm like, wow. So people think it's very interesting to know an artist and get to see a part of their life, which is cool.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, particularly when it comes to making a living, making a profit, and making artwork, is that it's not, I don't know, selling plants or something, right? Where people are like, oh yeah, this person has a cute curation of plants. And I'm thinking of plants specifically because I used to live in Bangkok, and there was a couple who were down the street. They would just set up a plant stand, and you could just go and buy plants from them. And it was great. And we had lots of houseplants from them. But it's when it's something so personal, people really do want to feel connected to the artist. And that's why in gallery settings and like really high-end gallery settings, what's like the biggest prize for being a supporter, you get to have dinner with the artist. It's like access to the artist is woven into support for the gallery and support for the artist. And people want to feel that connection. And getting to do things where you're going to fairs and you're being the face of your own artwork, it's got to feed back in a really positive way. And then also, I would imagine for you, it's got to be more meaningful to know that your work is out there with people who are invested in you and your family and your story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And whenever I've done shows at a gallery and I read the bio and the statement that they helped me put together, because people that work for galleries are much better writers than I am. The bio is always, and the way they talk about my work, I'm always so impressed with. Like, wow, that makes me sound amazing. And I could never talk about my work that way. Like, it's just, I'm a visual person. So I can communicate that way. But I think it does help people to meet the artist and be like, oh, they're not this. It takes the harder edges off, right? I am just a person too.
Yeah.
And when I have done gallery shows, and like I said, I read the statement, I'm like, wow, this person sounds awesome. But that person is neat.
Yeah.
And I'm so much more accessible than and I think that's another reason people think about the art world as like this other space, this like very hyper intellectual, snotty. And I'm talking about not other artists. I'm talking about like people who aren't artists or art collectors or whatever you want to call the art world. But people think about it that way. And it's just people with their own ideas trying to convey them somehow, right?
Yeah.
And that's an easy entry point. And it's nice to be able to talk to people and get them to see them just like regular person.
Yeah.
And every artist is, no matter how high end they are, and they have their work in museums. They're just people too.
They're just people too. How do you recover from being drained? You said you have to have a couple of days, because I imagine that the energy that you're putting into selling and being out there, and as you say, saying the same thing over and over again. Like, I've worked art fairs with galleries. I get that. You tell the same story, but it's new to that person. So you need to sound as enthusiastic the 100th time as the first time. And all of that does take it out of you. But then you need energy to create more work to be able to go to the next fair.
Yeah, great question. I do long distance running. So I used to do marathons. I don't have that kind of time anymore, but I still run. And I find that to be very important for me, to have like time to just think is what I need. And that's how I generate new ideas. I have a notes app on my phone of like new ideas and like a mini sketchbook that I keep, because of course you're going to have days where you feel drained when you come into your studio and you also don't feel creative. But this is my job. And so I work every day, no matter how I feel about it. And having a backstock of, I had 10 ideas on this run that I jotted down in my notes app at the end of it. 4 days later, when I go into my studio and I can't think of anything except, the challenging morning that I had trying to get my son to use the toilet. And we're potty training right now. So like, I feel like so much energy, and then I just immediately go into the studio and I'm like, okay, how to shift gears. Don't have anything in my head. Don't feel creative. Don't feel any of that. I can just look back for when I was generating those ideas and can take a deep breath and be like, okay, I want to build on this today. And like I said, even if I don't feel it when I get started, then I can get into it the more that I work. So anything that I can do where I can just have some time to think and relax is really important for me. Running is that right now. Because when I leave my studio, it's 3-year-old all the time, right? And he doesn't go to bed until 9:00 because he's still napping. So I don't really even have a ton of time. I do work after he goes to sleep, but it's like not enough work time to like really get into a groove. So having a mental separation anytime during the day is really important, because as soon as I leave my space, it's like mom zone, especially right. My husband's gone for a few weeks and like, it's just me and Wells. And of course, my wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah.
Who I could not live without. And honestly, like she has, she's from Thailand. She's an au pair, actually. So she lives with us. She lives in an apartment that adjoins our house, which is a cool thing that DC has plenty of, like separate but together living spaces. So she has her own space, but she has traveled with me all over the country. And it's like me and her and my son and Airbnbs and driving in the car. And sometimes I'll drive and then they'll fly and meet me because, like I said, my husband travels too. And so having a kid and having 2 crazy travel schedules is really challenging. And she has been like, I don't know how people do this without, because we don't live in your family either. So you just have to have some really great extra set of hands and brain to help you. So she's awesome. It's not just me and Joe. We have an extra set of hands.
For sure.
She's phenomenal.
Yeah. So do you have anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to that you want to shout out in the time we have left? Any fairs or things that you're doing that people might be able to go see your work at?
I'm having some looming sense of dread right now.
Oh, good.
That's what you want to hear.
Yep.
No,
what are you
I'm
looking
excited.
To? Looming sense of dread.
I always feel this way at this time of year because in November, I do one online sale a year in November where I sell work through my website. But every other time that I sell work, it's in person or just like a one-off. Somebody likes a piece that I'm posting on Instagram and I sell it and ship it that way. But I mostly travel to shows and sell my work. And from November to like the end of February is my pure studio time. And that's when I mostly make new etchings and don't feel the pressure to like produce end products because I'm making etchings and I'm just like in that zone. But my first show of the year is President's Day weekend and I'm going down to Miami. It's the Coconut Grove Art Festival. And I'm really looking forward to Miami weather right now.
Yeah.
It's cold in DC, but and this happens to me every year, I get so excited about making new etchings. I always spend more time than I probably should on that. And then I get in panic mode about how much work that I have for starting my show season. But I'm going to Coconut Grove and then Tampa for a show called Gasparilla and then Winter Park art show, which is outside Orlando. And that's always great. And we build in, everybody's coming to that show with me. By everybody, I mean Wells, Joe, and Faya, our nanny, and we're all going to Disney.
Oh, that'll be fun.
We always spend like an extra day or two and go to Disney when we do that. And then in terms of this year, I'm really excited about Jazz Fest. I did that for the first time last year and it was so fun. I'd never been in New Orleans before. That's the other thing about doing shows yourself is I get to go all over the place. And so has Wells. And Wells has been all over the country and flown 25 times and he's 3. Like it's really cool. And he's great on a road trip and he's great traveling because he just goes somewhere all the time. But Jazz Fest is going to be really fun this year in New Orleans. I sell my work there and I'm looking forward to going to Denver in July for Cherry Creek. And I don't do tons and tons of shows. There are people who are every other weekend. That's not me. I just do the ones that I know I do pretty well at and otherwise like to stay home. That's what I'm looking forward to. And having enough work to do all those shows. I'm also looking forward to feeling like I have enough creative.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in that space right now, but I'm working on it.
But it's still technically January. You're fine.
It's still technically January. I need to tell myself that over and over again. And it does tend to work itself out. Sometimes I have to cancel a show if I don't have enough work. And that's how it is.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think that's a really important part of maturing as a creator is just knowing that and telling yourself, look, it always gets done one way or another. And if not, I adjust. And we have a phrase in our house working in the arts, and I'm married to an artist, which is there's no such thing as an art emergency. And
it's true.
We say that to each other a lot when we're getting worked up about something because we're perfectionists. We want it to be this way, and we want to be the best at it, and we want to look good, and we want to make everyone we're working with look good. And it's really easy to start to get panicked. And every once in a while, you just have to look at your partner and say, honey, there's no such thing as an art emergency.
Oh my gosh. Truer words have never been spoken. Do you know, have you heard of the book Beautiful Oops?
No.
Oh my gosh. It's great. It's a kid's book. I used it like when I was teaching. We would read it together the first day of art class with all the elementary school kids. And it's about accidents and mistakes and how you can turn it into something wonderful. And I think about that all the time in my studio because and that's actually how I started when I did printmaking in Andy Rubin's class. I would get fingerprints on things and I'd be like, I'm going to get rid of this print. I'll just paint a balloon over that. And I just build on things that way. I never take commissions because I don't like to feel like I'm working for anybody else. But I took a commission this winter from these gentlemen that have a bunch of my work, and they wanted a specific piece. And I thought it would be a really fun piece to make. And they gave me the barest of guidelines. Yeah. I did them a bunch of drawings. And then it was a really big piece. And I had been working on it for a long time. And they had already given me a big deposit and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm probably going to be done with this piece tomorrow. And I spilled a bunch of blue ink on it. And I have that moment where I scream and curse and get really mad. And then I was like, by the end of the day, I had solved the problem. I'd done a little paper scraping. I added some ribbons over it. And actually, I like it better the way that it is now and the way it turned out. But it is that thing of beautiful oops. And that can translate to so many things in life. But okay, you have this problem. Why don't you use it as a jumping block for more creativity? And like, how do you solve it now? Right? So
I love that. I feel like that is a beautiful note to wrap up on for our conversation. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So please tell people where they can find you and follow you and find out where you're going to be. And maybe if they're not going to be there, wait for that November sale.
Okay. I'm going to try to remember to update my show schedule on my Instagram for when this comes out, because other people have been messaging me about it on Instagram. So it's something I need to do anyways. But I post my show schedule on Instagram from everything I know about so far this year when you can see me in person. My Instagram handle is Amanda_Outcalt, and that's spelled Outcalt, Amanda_Outcalt. And I try to include on my Instagram lots of process stuff because there are no secrets in life, and I am happy to share. Never worried about anybody copying because the instance of that happening is so small in art, but people like to have the knowledge of how you do something and it'll spark something in their brain and they'll have an idea and jump off from that. So I do a lot of process videos I do soft ground etching a lot, which I get tons of messages about because I don't think, and again, I'm not like the number one printmaker by any means. Before the podcast, I said, I am no expert in printmaking. Please don't quote me on anything I say about technique, but I do soft ground etchings and then I do hard ground on top of that typically. And so I get a ton of questions about soft ground etching because I think it's a little bit less self-explanatory than hard ground maybe. but I have tons of process videos of that. I show the jeweler saw that I use for sawing things out. I show all of it in my highlights and my reels and things. So if you follow me on Instagram and you have questions about my process, I'm happy to answer them. And hopefully some of that is answered just by watching those videos, because I try to document everything and explain everything, because prep is tough to explain. And most people who follow me are just regular people who have met me at a show and bought my work and want to know how I make it. So I try to really keep it basic, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the best way to explain printmaking is to see a video like that, because I worked in a printmaking gallery for 5 years with people in off the street who didn't know anything about it. And you get to the second step and you can see the eyes glazing over. Like you've already lost them. You're like, so then you scrape away the resin that's on top, and then they're not there.
Do you want to hear how I tell people who meet me at shows what an etching is?
Yeah.
This is what I say. I do a drawing on a piece of copper. I etch my drawn lines in an acid bath so they're deep enough to hold ink later. Hand saw it out. Then I ink it, put a piece of paper on top, and it runs through a press, and the pressure of the press transfers my drawing from the copper to the paper.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That's it. But it's much more complicated than that. But when I'm at an art show and I have like just a few minutes with someone, I always bring an etching to show, but then that's the basic of the basic. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
Because people are unfamiliar with the technique.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's another reason why it's cool to sell your work in person. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Amanda_Outcalt. And then my link to my website is there. And I don't really sell my work on my website, but for once a year.
Totally.
But yeah, so cool. That's it.
Thank you so much, Amanda. This was just lovely to talk to you and to ask you all kinds of questions that's been whirring around since I found your work years ago.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. And hopefully this was informative.
It was great.
But I'm glad that we had the conversation that we did, because people who are listening to a printmaking podcast know a lot about printmaking already, but it's so interesting to hear other people talk. When I've listened to your podcast, it's interesting to hear about other people's inspiration and why they make what they make. Yeah. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And that's our show for this week. Join me again next week. My guest will be Tony Clow from Serio Press in Los Angeles. You won't want to miss it. If you like today's episode, we have a Patreon where you can help support the podcast and get bonus content like Shop Talk Shorts with past guests. But the very best thing you can do to support this podcast is listen, rate, follow, and share with a fellow print friend somewhere out there in the world. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you next week.